All right, welcome in, Steelers fans. It's the Noel Road, and here's a question for you. What level of success does Mike Tomlin need to have with the Steelers in 2025 in order for you to be sure he'll be back? Interesting conversation as we track how realistic it is they could fire him or trade him. Could the Steelers actually move on from Tomlin? Plus, Asante Samuel injury update. Is this reason to believe the best version of Asante is still to come? And could another Pro Bowl defensive signing be in the cards, or is this guy just too much of a weirdo? Plus, a top insider weighs in on the Rodgers future. Seems like he agrees with us, New Bear. Here we go.
Then to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
All right, I'm Gavin Dawson from 105.3 The Fan in North Texas, and joining me as always is my all-academic SEC lineman, smarty pants football guy, New Bear Lizniewski. How the hell are you, buddy? Oh, you're muted.
I'm so excited to have this conversation because there's what could happen, what should happen, what would happen. There's what we want to happen. There's what's most likely to happen. There's so many ways to get into this.
Yes, please leave a comment down below. Tell us what you think Tomlin has to do. Maybe you think the Steelers are bringing him back no matter what for a 20th season going into the draft. You know, I guess there are some reasons to believe the Steelers don't move on from coaches often. What would make it be this year? So maybe you think just 9-8 gets it done, or even 8-9. Maybe it's making the playoffs. Is it the wild card? Is it getting all the way to the AFC title game? That would be what I would hold him to. I'm going to say, okay, we need multiple playoff wins. We got to get this defense figured out. We're spending so much damn money. You got Aaron Rodgers. No excuses, bro, because we're coming up on a decade without a playoff win. I mean, any other coach in this situation, if you just started fresh from 2016 to this point, would have been fired a long time ago.
Yeah, the biggest thing is the continuity play beyond the I don't know, symmetry of 20 years and the spectacular of the NFL draft and, everything that hangs in the balance that's quote unquote tied to Tomlin, meaning does Aaron Rodgers come back? Do you finally go all in? And what does that mean? Because if signing Aaron Rodgers and trading Minka Fitzpatrick isn't an all-in starter kit, then miss me with the rest of the conversation. So, yeah, I mean, you teased it pretty good. 8-9. Could you imagine if the non-losing season finally ending is the thing, and then all the way to the AFC Championship game and what that would mean and how they would look to get that job done? Who, buddy?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting place to start with. Just 8-9, I believe, would get him fired. I think anything above that, he's coming back. Like, you don't bet against a streak. This is one hell of a streak, and what's in the Steelers owners' DNA. There's a lot of signs. Like I said, I think a lot of organizations would have already decided to move on. I think schematically you have questions. We have questions about, is his message still getting home? Is there togetherness on this coaching staff? Like, if Mike Tomlin isn't bringing everybody together, having a great chemistry and culture, then I would ask, why exactly are you keeping him around? So that's what I would say. AFC title game or bust. I think the Steelers will say another non-losing season, we're going to bring Tomlin back. What's your gut tell you there inside Pittsburgh that they're likely thinking along this right now?
Well, I mean, what did he say last year? Never say never, but never, right? When he was getting linked to some big-time college jobs with these rumors start.
Man, he would be perfect for college.
Oh, especially in this new era. I mean, we touched on that a little bit at the end of the last show, but you just asked a simple question about, like, what do you think is happening here? And I've started commenting a lot back to folks who are talking about what we're talking about and how it's not actually Madden, because the thing that's got Steelers Nation's brain broken is that, yeah, we don't want to be the Jets, and yeah, we don't want to be the Browns or any of these other teams that, you think are just like clowns running clowns around this league at the bottom of your respective division. And you see their little kids pop up on TikTok talking about being traumatized by being born into this level of fandom. Nobody wants that.
No, But you shouldn't want to be mediocre either. Like,
And
this isn't real success. You can't be afraid of the downside. You got to risk it all.
That's the thing, is the consistency, the continuity, you use the word togetherness, that's awesome if it's working. It's awesome even, and look, when you really go look at the storied franchises, and I'm not talking about, Dallas winning 3 and 4 and being a dynasty and they haven't won one in 30 years. Most people know that one. When was the last 49ers win? How about the Bears? Go to some of your other beloved franchises and look at the last time they really won or even got there. And you go, okay, well, that's what happens when you fall off this slippery slope. And that's what everyone's scared of, living in your fears. Rooney's on down. The reason that I'm so ready for the change is because of, Einstein's definition of insanity, shaking hands with what it looks like. And what I mean by that is, if you go into the playoffs, and I'm saying even if you get to the AFC Championship and you're running into Josh Allen, you're running into Patty Mahomes, you're running into Lamar, whoever it is on the other side of that field, and it's another 35-point embarrassment, 299 yards, stiff arm meme embarrassment, announcers talking about where's the fight in this team level of embarrassment. Like, if you win 2 playoff games and still get embarrassed, AR2 was saying what? Like, the level, fans are a little spoiled, right? Because they don't appreciate maybe the winning. They should be a little bit happier. But at the same time, it's not good enough. Like, not winning playoff games, not winning a Lombardi is not good enough. The standard is standard. Right now, the standard for the better part of a decade hasn't just been not winning. It hasn't just been not getting close. It's been getting embarrassed while doing so.
Yeah, I get your point. I think because of that drought, winning multiple playoff games is intoxicating. It's adrenalizing. You feel like, man, we were so close. We would have got a couple of more breaks and been in that thing. To me, the bigger issue is not winning any playoff games for 8 years now. In North Texas here on the Fan, the Cowboys now lead the league in time since they last made the conference title game. And, even 12, 15 years out from 1996, that was already starting to become a very significant storyline. Like, how inept do you have to be? There's 16 teams in your conference. 2 of them make it. So 1 out of every 8 years would be the average. If you make it that long and you're supposed to be one of the most successful franchises, one of the best coach franchises, I think that is a massive red flag. And if you make it to 12, 13 years, then you are a significant failure. And the problem is, and I talk about it maybe a little bit too much, but for these long, great organizations, they have heritage, they have brand equity, they have built up just an absolute empire. They're making so much money just playing it safe. And they're too worried about what happens if we slide down towards the bottom, because that's the real enemy. The real enemy of your power NFL teams is not winning the Super Bowl. It's being so bad that you lose your relevancy and you lose your fan base. Like 3 or 4 years in the cellar, what does Acrisure look like? What do the sports radio topics look like? Is it more Penguins and Pirates and college football? And how much are the Steelers losing the share of that? So this is engagement farming. The way that the Rooneys and the Khans are running this situation is to keep people engaged through the full 17 games that you play in the regular season. And those TV ratings and everything that you build up is great. But, I come from a fan perspective, New Bear, that regular season wins do not mean jack shit to me. Like, I get no joy out of it. I'm like, cool, you won. We survived that. The fun happens when you win playoff games and go on a magic carpet ride.
Okay, so you're going to love this, right? So this is year 19 for Tomlin in the Steel City. How many years has he actually won a playoff game?
4?
18. Yeah, it's exactly 4.
Okay.
So, and 2 of those came, right? So in his second year, they won it all. And in the 4th year, they went back to the Super Bowl and had that epic duel, right, with Aaron Rodgers. So that would be 4 years in, right? Went to 6, won 5 playoff games, including a Super Bowl win and 2 Super Bowl appearances. He's still living on that. What that means is that in the 14 years since, not counting this year, but the 14 years of the other 18 years, there have been 2 years that you won a playoff game. Like, how is that the standard? 2 in 14.
Yeah, that's no sustenance. That's heading right down the path of a very frustrated fan base, and I feel like we're now on the doorstep to opening up sustained mediocrity now without Aaron Rodgers, without a quarterback, with an aging defense. Like this could be actually, looking back in 5 years, this could be actually the one good year that you got out of.
Well, and I'm going to be really ticked off too, is if it's like, you've brought this up before about it, when is Aaron Rodgers going to make up his mind? And I think you and I are in two different places on that, because I think he already knows the answer and they have a plan. And you think he's going to wait till the last minute. Just like I don't think he did wait till the last minute this year. I think between his phantom wife, and there were some family members who had illnesses, he had a lot going on. He also had to go on his ayahuasca retreat, like a lot to unpack for Aaron Rodgers in the summertime.
Don't want to skip that.
He was never really going to Minnesota because they were all in on JJ McCarthy. That's why they let Sam Darnold walk. He was never going anywhere else. He was not skipping across the hall to the New York Football Giants. He was either coming to Pittsburgh or he was taking his pipe and going to the jungle. Like, there was no in between. And so I think Tomlin, the message is Aaron Rodgers came here because Tomlin understood. Tomlin's a grown-up. Tomlin gave him all the leash that he wanted. In reality, they had a handshake deal behind closed doors like that. There's no way it happened any other way, because otherwise you're doing what? You're running Will Howard out there, Skylar Thompson. Like, what are we talking about? No, it was Mason Rudolph. People forget that guy's still on the damn team. And I would have actually been the first guy raising my hand saying, at the beginning of this year, before you sign A-Rod, before you trade Minka, before you do all these things, like, let's see what a year of Mason Rudolph looks like, because they still say to this day that they had a first-round grade on him and were so lucky to get him in the third round. And then they spent the dude's whole career jerking him around and never really giving him, a full run or multiple years to develop. And you could say what you want to say about Kenny Pickett. I know people have a lot of different feelings in a lot of different ways. There was no end of Ben plan. There was no post Ben plan. Kenny Pickett was a reach. Mason Rudolph never got a real shot. Why would you trust this group of people to decide the quarterback to go get when the draft is here next year? How is that the determining factor?
That's a great point, New Bear. So leave a comment down below. Where do you think Tomlin needs to make it to in order to be back next year? Would love your thoughts on that. I got some more fuel for your Tomlin hate. You might have actually sent me this link here, New Bear. I don't know. We send so much stuff back and forth, but this is from Steeler Nation. And the article says, point your finger at Mike Tomlin for the horrible offense, not Arthur Smith. And is that screen coming up as well? There he is, Christopher Barbray, a staff writer. And his point is that, the offensive scheme and a lot of the points of emphasis and priorities are Tomlin dictated to Arthur Smith. You told me, I know, and I didn't want to believe it. But if that is the truth, then I feel even worse. I don't know how some of these offensive minds sit there and let a head coach boss them around, especially when you're wanting to play more boring football or not take chances because we're going to win this thing defensively. I would hope that if this had happened in the past, a journalist could go to former coaches and get this confirmed. Like, is Mike Tomlin dictating this, and to what extent? But like the offense is just really unimaginative. We're not scheming guys open. We're not asking questions enough of the defense. A lot of it is determined by, asking guys to go win matchups. And obviously that's what you pay guys to go do, and you need elements of that. But with today's NFL defenses being so fast and so capable of covering, if you're not throwing them off the scent for a half second, then you're really going to struggle. And watching them on the early downs and then watching them on third down just this last week, it looked totally inept. So I would hope that for the last 8 games of the season, if that is the case, Arthur Smith can get to Mike Tomlin and say, dude, you got to take the handcuffs off so we can try some new things here to get this cranking. Because right now Aaron Rodgers is at his wit's end. He's just telling guys, you need to get more open.
So I'm not an Artie Smith stan. I have been backed into a corner on this show to support the man for what he has shown on film. And particularly in the coming out stuff, where you see a play one week that looks like it's drawn up for someone, and no, it's the big man. It's Darnell Washington. Mount Washington's finally getting loose. And then the very next week, it's a little tweak off of that for Jonnu Smith, and they just miss it, right? What they're missing right now is trust. Aaron Rodgers doesn't trust anyone. He still doesn't trust himself completely because he doesn't know what his body can or can't do from week to week. Some weeks he looks like he's turning back the clock, and some weeks he looks like he needs Percocet. And it's really troubling to think about being in that spot where he chased himself into a safety when at the same time he is rolling out and throwing a laser cannon rocket ball that Muth, ultimately dropped on the sideline. And there was a penalty on that one, right? The one that made all the memes and then there's the Hail Mary that set the record for, longest throw of the century. He's still got the arm, and some weeks he's going to move really well, and some weeks he's going to think he can still move enough, and he's going to get bottled up. But the point of this, all of it with Artie Smith, is everywhere he's been, he's either been blamed for or the beneficiary of, oh, well, you had Derrick Henry, so of course you could make Ryan Tannehill look good and young A.J. Brown. Or the quarterbacks, the laundry list of shit show Johnny quarterbacks in Atlanta, but he also kind of ruined and played around with, Bijan and Algier as a rookie, and Drake London took a minute to get going, and Kyle Pitts was really, really, really inconsistent and kind of a bummer. And, he had some injuries, and rookies are rookies, and Drake London's a little bit slow. It's not like he's Jetta or Chase out there, which brings me to the point of this week and Brandon Eccles saying, after Tomlin and everyone else talking about how much, this Joe Flacco nightmare fuel, being so pissed off about the trade and what happened the first time they played, Eccles came out and actually said he didn't parrot Tomlin and he didn't parrot Terrell Austin. He said we need to respect Joe Flacco more. Now, what does that mean? We're going to see on Sunday.
Yeah, you're going to have to get after him. If you have a repeat performance against the Bengals, we'll preview that more coming up in our Sunday show and probably tomorrow night or Friday night as well. But you mentioned the word trust there at the beginning. And I think for me, my main concern of the trust factor right now would be my offensive line if I'm Aaron Rodgers.
And really what you mean by that is Broderick Jones.
Yeah, that's what I mean, Broderick Jones. Fatana's been good. I guess you got a situation at left guard here with Sayamalu being injured as well. And I wonder.
I guess he looked good at practice today. He did a lot of drills where they really stretched it. They really pushed it. Obviously, we'll see how he feels tomorrow. But the reports from today were good.
The 49ers have been great with, at times, a bottom third or bottom half offensive line. The Cowboys are killing it on the ground and killing it offensively with a
scheme.
So what you can do for offensive linemen that struggle is get them on the move more. Don't turn them into, I got to be a wall and beat this guy for 3 seconds or the play is busted. It's got to be more deception, moving parts, and keeping the defensive line guessing.
You brought up the Niners first, right? What's the de facto thing for Shanahan is McCaffrey. And everyone talks about how the running backs in the Shanahan system don't skip a beat. Think about all the different dudes that played for his old man that made Pro Bowls. And of course, Terrell Davis being in the Hall of Fame, despite having like the shortest career. It's like him and Gale Sayers for who had the smallest window to be one of the GOATs, right? Yeah. So that's not the whole truth, though, because what a guy like Christian McCaffrey as a Swiss Army knife does, him moving, watch the line move with him. Moving, Kittle moving, watch the line split and go with them both. And then they come back to it and send the line in two different directions. They bring a Jawan Jennings or a Ricky Pearsall into the backfield like young Jerry Rice. And then they bring Kittle on a Y Hyde back into the middle of it all. You don't know which way to go.
Yes, exactly. And that's all I want. And the 49ers made the Super Bowl before McCaffrey. When McCaffrey came, it supercharged it, but they still ran good offense without him. And I'm not as good at breaking down the offensive terms and understanding how the schemes work, but it's obvious. It becomes very obvious. Are you doing any pin and pull stuff? Are you doing any trap stuff? Do you have a diversified run play? Because the traps make those defensive linemen think twice about trying to be so aggressive shooting the gaps. It's one of the main keys for the Ravens' offensive success. They say it's just Lamar and Henry and being being more talented than the defense, but so much of it is schematics that give them the extra 10, 15, sometimes 20% of production inside a play by just keeping those defensive linemen guessing. And until you're doing that, whenever you have just average offensive line, your offense is going to get frozen multiple times per season.
Here's something that I want to bring up because I've been thinking about it a lot. And you talk about the run game, then I immediately want to talk about play action off of it. And I want to talk about Peyton Manning and, going from Marshall Faulk to Edgerrin James. And everyone just assumes, oh my God, you had two, Hall of Fame level running backs. What great running games. And yes, the counting stats, and yes, like the totality of the data is good because the offense as a whole was good. And, you can go back and you can talk about Manning, being a rookie when, Falk was on his way out, 4.1 yards a carry. Now, did he have 1,300 yards? Yeah, but it took him 324 carries to do it. They also targeted him 100 times. He caught 86 balls for another 900 yards. You have to use the weapons. You have to be stubborn. And I say this all the time, right? On purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. Like, what are you doing? Edgerrin James, his first 2 years, 450 touch seasons. And I'm not saying Jaylen Warren is Edgerrin James. In fact, I've argued with you a lot. I don't even think Jaylen Warren is a true RB1. I think that's why you need a Caleb Johnson with the bigger body to take some of the blows, take some of the wear and tear, so Warren can be an X factor in the playoffs. The reason I'm still talking about the Colts, though, is Edgerrin James breaks down in year 3, only plays 6 games, still has 175 touches. Think about that. That's 30 per. The next 2 years, 14 games, 13 games, 400, pushing 400 touches, right? Mid 350s to 400. But here's the big thing. The dude never averaged more than, I think, 4.4. And there were years where he was 3.6. Maybe 1 year he gets up to 4.5 or 4.6. But consistently in the low 4s. Like, even with Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison, multiple dudes at multiple levels. It wasn't Barry Sanders. It wasn't even Emmitt Smith MVP season, Adrian Peterson. Pick your favorite running back going off. And a lot of those guys didn't have Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, and Marvin Harrison.
Yeah.
In order to do the things that you do off of the things you do well, off the things you do pretty good, and vice versa, you have to be able to settle in and say, here's what we're hanging our hat on, so that there's an expectation of what you're going to see as a defense, and then how you trick and dick them off that if you're not good enough physically to just line up and beat them.
Yeah, great stuff, New Bear. Let's see what else we can get in here in our final 7.5 minutes of the Knoll Road with you here on YouTube. Hit the like button if you're liking the content. We would absolutely love that. It helps us, get a little bit better distribution. Lets the folks at YouTube know, hey, we're liking this over here. Maybe bring more people into the fold. Okay, let me share screen. Got updates on a number of stories here for you. Let's start with Nick Farabaugh and Asante Samuel.
This is awesome.
Said the issue that forced his neck surgery was not one that happened just last season, but throughout most of his NFL career. Samuel said he feels like he might be the healthiest he's been in the NFL. Hopefully that's not healthiest like Jair Alexander, who said that last week and then pretty much left the Eagles Tuesday afternoon to go take care of himself physically and mentally. Hopefully everything's going to be okay with Jair Alexander. And in light of the Marshawn Nealon story last week, I just want to, take a moment and say, get well, Jair. Hope to see you soon. But that's just the point of a lot of times in these kind of moments, players will say, I'm in the best shape of my life. It's a common cliche in sport, but if true, and he can get back to what he was in 22 and 23 when he was, maybe just a half step down from that elite tier of corner, this could be incredible for the Steelers. It could really turn it around, because when we're looking at the defense, I've talked a lot about nose tackle and the 2 linebackers and how you can get pushed around a little bit. Keanu Benton getting forklifted out of there against the Jets was a rude awakening and start to the season. But I think for the balance of the season, corner has been the biggest issue on defense.
Well, yeah, now there's so much so that they're talking about, or you were talking about right before we hopped in, about when Peppers is healthy, does that mean Ramsey goes back to the slot? And I just, what if you are able to go out there and say, like I was just bitch moaning, complaining about running, even if it's not great, so you can play action off it. How about being able to go out there and say, oh, Jamar Chase is having a night, or T. Higgins is having a night because we're trying to take him out, or we took Chase out. We got to do something about T. And you have answers to that because you're not worried about, I can't even say his name, Andre Yosevich,
yeah.
I can't even say his name, and I'm from almost where he's from originally, or my people were back millennium ago.
It's in your DNA somewhere, buddy. Get it out.
Somewhere. And Tomlin's so afraid of him, and then he hits him one time, and it completely changes everything. Like if Asante Samuel Jr. could just run with your third guy because you trust JPJ and you trust Eccles, and you're able to like just come into the thing with a base plan where it's like, this is who we're going to double, and if it doesn't work, this is how we're going to adapt. The last time these guys played, there wasn't even that. Like you talk about it being obvious, right? It's pretty freaking obvious that Jamar Chase is the best receiver in football. It's pretty freaking obvious that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are the best duo in football, unless CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens get cooking again. So when you see this, and look, this is half speed at practice. Shout out to Najee Harris's old number that people keep talking about. How about Juan Thornhill's old number? He was here 5 minutes ago. Now dude's in his jersey. But you know, the thing that's so interesting to this about me is that people keep forgetting who this dude's daddy is, right? And like how tough that guy was, how many things he came back from. First of all, he's wearing 22 because that was his daddy's number. It has nothing to do with Najee or Thornhill. He's junior. He's saluting the old man because someone else is wearing the 2-6. And if you can go out there on Sunday, and he probably doesn't play, but maybe they do throw him in there for 10 or 15 to try to get his legs under him, and you put him in there and he has a plan where he can start feeling good about himself. And if that doesn't happen until next week, fine. But when you get out there and you have your full assortment of guys, you have to be able to say, this is how we want to dictate tempo based on what we think they're going to do. And as that changes, this is how you react to.
Yeah. And I don't know what you thought of that, but, you know, is that half speed? That was the only clip that we got. That was Nick Faribault as well, posting that clip from practice. It's too difficult to tell.
But have you seen the training stuff where he's sprinting on the uphill, you know, treadmill and doing all the different crazy stretching? And what people need to realize is this was not an ACL, Achilles, you know, hamstring off the bone, avulsion fracture. This isn't a chondral graft. This isn't some freaky thing. This dude had a shoulder that was actually a neck that resulted in spinal fusion, but he's been running and training every day since then. Like, this was just a matter of, do the dude's bones hold up to the car crashes? Yeah,
and I think for those reasons, they got to seriously think about having him active just in case the bleep really hits the fan. Okay, up next here on the Knoll Road, Christian Wilkins, the next signing. Queensburg having a little bit of fun. I went scouring the internet looking for any signs that Christian Wilkins is approaching a return. I think the HR issue was just so embarrassing and weird. I don't know, was he trying to suck a player's toes? Was he flirting with them? Was he doing Micah Parsons at Penn State stuff? I'm not sure exactly what he was doing, but at this point, considering how good he is, maybe his grievance against the Raiders is holding up a signing, or the NFL is looking at him like, we're just going to ostracize you out of the league for being a weirdo and suing us after we kicked you out for HR violations. I don't know everything going on, but I don't have any reason to believe that Christian Wilkins is going to be on any team anytime soon.
We will never get the real answer. The speculation is so rampant. You want to go down a Reddit rabbit hole on that one. It's insane, and it's beyond NSFW. And he's lucky he didn't get his ass beat if half of this stuff is true.
Well, that's what I would say to my team. If we bring this guy in, whoever wants to fight him, just go ahead. Like, all of our team rules where they don't apply to Christian Wilkins. If he tries anything weird on you, you're allowed to go get at least 2 teammates to kick his ass.
Look, and I'm not, this is not me hearsay saying things for the sake of saying things. Like, he put things on tape at Clemson. I mean, literally fondling dudes in the bottom of piles. And, you know, he's a very eccentric person. He's got a dance and ballet, you know, background stuff, which, hey, in Pittsburgh, Lynn Swan, baby, all day. We'll do ballet all the way to the next Lombardi, as long as you're not trying to do it on your teammates.
Yeah, you know, and I just think there's a lot of crazy toxic traits. And, you know, we're both guys, we both played sports. You get in the locker room, there's a lot of like homophobic type of comedy that goes on. I think what he did, though, not that I'm endorsing homophobic comedy, but I think what he did much more veers into the concept of the SA violations. Those are more like a power and an assault vibe. Like it's bullying on steroids, and there's some sort of a perverted joy that guys that do it to that level, I think, get out of it. It's really gay assault more than it is hazing.
Well, and depending on who or what is true, and who or what had happened, what or who had happened to, when you think about the size of this man versus like a corner or a punter or
Yeah.
some of those things, like when the point you just brought up about like power and stuff like that is like he's not doing this stuff to Cam Hayward. He's not doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's doing this stuff, and it also from some of the videos that leaked right before he was ultimately cut is he was doing there were things and there have been things that have come out about training room and other staff, not just teammates, right? Where he's
yeah.
not listening. There's like discipline related stuff because he's not doing his rehab right. He all this stuff happened because he was out with an injury. So it's not an isolated thing, meaning it's not an isolated act. It's also not an isolated group that it impacts.
Like, so is this involving staff members, like a little Peyton Manning at Tennessee deal?
That's probably the perfect place to put. And again, this is, nothing is like affidavit level, redacted, court case level stuff. But like, there are just so many rumors that you go, like, what would it take for this guy, especially? And oh, by the way, I should have said this at the jump. We can go as deep and as wide on something like this because it's interesting in this day and age to think about a talent like this, a draft pick like this, a just got paid like that, and it might all be gone while there's pending lawsuits and we're waiting to see what is released and what we do get to see and what does become public knowledge, on the record. You know why we don't even need to even talk about this anymore, entertain the idea is Y.A. Black.
Oh, yes. We did a curtain call on him last night. If you want to check our library in the shorts, the curtain call after every Steelers game day, we celebrate the top moments, and Y.A. Black was outstanding.
What did you called him the Thunder to Keanu Benton's Lightning? What have you been clamoring for is like, if Black can be the big bulk, like let me just two gap and take on these double teams. And then here comes Keanu Benton in sub packages, a nickel, dime. Have they still have played a snap a dime? I don't think so. But all kidding aside, in any of the big nickel with the three safeties and any of this stuff we're going to see with Jabril Peppers, now Keanu Benton gets to go do what you drafted Keanu Benton to do.
And he's fresh, dude. He's fresh for 20 snaps a game doing that instead of trying to get his ass kicked in the run game. Okay, speaking of other additions, should OBJ be on the radar?
Okay, so Roman Wilson season. Have you watched the one I said every rep run? Dude, he is open, and so is Freiermuth. When I'm talking about trust and we're talking about the offensive line and Artie Smith and all this stuff, Aaron Rodgers has got to trust his guys. And Aaron Rodgers has got to throw to who the coverage says is going to be open, especially when it doesn't change after the snap, because nobody's coming off DK because they have zero reason to. Roman Wilson season, by the way, playing him more and playing Calvin Austin less lets Calvin Austin go solve your punt return problem that you now have too.
Okay, so the quote from Aaron Rodgers, other guys got to get open, saying they're doubling DK on every third down. I don't know if Roman Wilson, it should be a Roman Wilson season or Calvin Austin. I think Austin's the better player. But I think that the double team issue is a factor. I guess the biggest point I would like to make, though, is just OBJ's washed. He was washed 2 years ago when he tried to come back. Like, his last good game was the Super Bowl when he tore his ACL, unfortunately.
And he was still good then. He still had tread on the tire.
He was good then.
Was he a clutch? And that was something, OBJ is a guy that, it's hard not to like. Talk about different wide receiver use. When you start thinking about Landry and Beckham and, through Jetta and Chase, and as much as everyone wants to talk about the Ohio State receiver rooms, in all respect, I think they're the best. LSU is right there at number 2 fighting for the number 1 spot. And when you think about who he was, and then the big I was going to say Spider-Man. Yeah, the one-handed catch and all the different things that come with being in New York and then the injuries. I think some people forget how good he was, and I think people forget how good he even was through that Super Bowl run with the Rams. When that knee went again, it has been more than an uphill battle since then. You don't get – it was PED suspension, right?
Yeah.
And that's because he's trying one last time – to turn back the clock and keep back Father Time, and you're willing to take 4 games if it gets you one more run at a ring.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind having him in for a workout. I would just be shocked if he is better than Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin at this point in his career.
But listen, this is why I keep saying Roman Wilson season, and I promise I will stop if they just decide they're not going to. But don't give me Jerry Rice garbage time and then waste another third round pick. And I'm not going to go into a Caleb Johnson place right now. But the reason I'm still talking is because if you don't find out if the kid can play now, then you have to go address it in the draft next year. If Roman Wilson is a legitimate running buddy for DK Metcalf and a building block going forward, then you can push all your chips in and go get whatever bleeping quarterback you want.
And thank you for not bringing up Caleb Johnson again. I think I would have thrown up in my mouth
just because of the wasted threes. That's all. Draft.
Okay, I wanted to get this quote in here from Mike Garafolo. Something's bothering me with the Steelers. He said Rodgers' reactions to his own teammates, to maybe himself, I don't know. There's been a lot of this. I don't love it. He strongly hinted this could be his last season. He hasn't really closed the door or solidified that. I'm not going to pretend like I know what's going on, but this leads me to believe this whole thing's just not on solid ground right now. We talked about that the other day. We weren't trying to overreact, really, although it was an Overreaction Monday show. I'm not trying to overreact to one loss, but they have lost 3 of 4. Okay. And Aaron Rodgers' body language and his facial expressions just holler out to me a guy that's having maybe less fun than even he did last year in New York. And that's a clear sign when your heart's just not in it or you're too frustrated. Like, congratulations, you're over the age of 40. You're becoming a grumpy old man. And if we have any more of those performances or they lose more than they win in the second half of the season, I'd guarantee Rodgers ain't coming back.
Yeah, 8-9. He's taking his ball and going home. First round beatdown. He's taking his ball and going home. I think if he rekindles any magic at all, and there is any thought that this could really be an all-in Super Bowl season in 26, right? Because that changes things. But then at the same time, I think Aaron Rodgers still felt the Green Bay Packers were all-in Super Bowl contenders when they drafted Jordan Love. He's been through dances like this before where the team hasn't done right by him. And what's going to be really interesting to see coming out this week isn't just Flacco, Chase, Higgins, Yosevich, and Chase Brown going for 9-8 a pop. But what does the other side look like? Because the Cincinnati Bengals have given up, what is it? Is it 96 points and 1,000 freaking yards? They've given up 1,000 yards of offense in their last 2 games. If this offense goes out there on Sunday and lays an egg, we got to have a real conversation going forward.
It's a great point to end on. We'll be back soon to talk about a must-win game against Cincinnati at Acrisure. For New Bear, I'm Dawson. We'll see you next time here on the Knoll Road.